Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, Chapter 80. When we last left our heroes, the fight with Yoko kind of came to a head as everyone was sort of struggling against the yokai. Erza turned to Yoko herself, and their fight was not great, I guess. It wasn't horrible, but it sort of involved with Yoko turning herself into a four-armed form, and so Erza got a six-armed armor. It was fine enough, but it kind of turned into a weird battle of the arms. The important thing is, though, Natsu kind of got distracted when he saw a yokai that was carrying his scarf. He chased it outside of the mountain, and when the yokai disappeared after Yoko's defeat, who did Natsu find but Suzaku of Diabolos? So with all that being said, let's jump right on into Chapter 80, Suzaku. And our picture here is Gray and Freed in, like, a manor, dressed up in what looked like kind of butlery outfits, with a subtitle, "Which one would you prefer your escort to be?" It's nice that some of Mashima's art aren't all sort of female-facing fan service. You get some male fan service in there, too. Which is, you know, equal opportunity, though there's a definite distinction in how, say, a sort of vaguely horny Eden Zero cover would be compared to this, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, we open where we left off, with Natsu and Suzaku having run into each other outside the mountain. And it's kind of unclear, as I recall, Natsu definitely does not know who Suzaku is, and I don't know if Suzaku has seen, like, pictures of Fairy Tail, so I don't know if Suzaku is aware of who Natsu is. But Natsu looks at him confused. Suzaku's, like, facial expression hasn't really changed. He's still just sort of sullen. And Natsu comes up and sniffs him. "This smell. You're a dragon slayer?" Oh, right, he can just do that. Yeah. And Suzaku responds, "Verily. And thou art?" "No." "Halt. Allow me an inference." And he looks over Natsu, naked with a scarf. A pervert. For a second there, I thought maybe that Kiria, like, told him, that Natsu, like, had the scarf and at least normally has, like, the open vest. But apparently not. We're just going back to when's the last time we saw the naked with a scarf pervert gag? I think that was in, like, the Lullaby arc. I remember Gray calling Natsu out for that then. I don't think it's shown up since. Either way, Natsu responds, "I'm Natsu, a fire dragon slayer. Can't believe there would be a dragon slayer in this world also." And then, Suzaku counters, "Nay, I am one who hails from Earthland. Rather, I have been summoned, reincarnated in another world." I'm curious if, I'm not quite sure if he's, accusing Natsu of that, or if that's just his own interpretation of the situation. But Natsu looks at him kind of confused. I think he is accusing, Natsu of that, because Natsu responds, "I also came from Earthland. A coincidence. I have come to defeat Selene." Natsu, "We got the same goal. A coincidence." It seems like Suzaku is not happy with the idea that he has anything in common with either anyone in particular, or this weird scarf-wearing shirtless dude he finds in the woods. But anyway, that'll remain to be seen. And Natsu kind of comes and, like, slaps him on the back. "I guess that makes us friends now," which is a very Shiki-like response, in his extremity. We'll see how that changes when Natsu realizes, who Suzaku works for. That is indeed very confusing. And just then, the rest of Fairy Tail all catches up to Natsu. "Natsu! Found him! Over there! Natsu-san!" Natsu notices them all. "Oh, guys! You've already beat all those kaiju? So they have a word for kaiju in Earthland. Okay, that's interesting." And Lucy kind of is, like, shocked that that's the connection he made. "Kaiju, you say?" And then Wendy tells him that's because Erza beat the one in charge. And Natsu, I love the sort of like a little kid, the way he looks at Erza there. "Look, I found my scarf." That's good. And Happy tells him, "We were surprised because you disappeared so suddenly." And Carla, "Can't you just use a collar?" And then Natsu sort of looks around. "Huh? Where's Aquarius?" As expected, even with this much magic power here, I can't keep her summoned all the time. But then Wendy finally notices Suzaku. So, who is this person? And Suzaku notices her, um, and then Suzaku sort of tells them, "Thou may callest me Suzaku. For reasons unknown, I have been summoned to this world to subdue Selene." That's a weird little line there, because as I recall, George, I think, is the master's name, of Diabolos, because he told Suzaku to go kill Selene, and then the head priestess at the Whiteout Village already told him why he was summoned and how he was summoned, right? So I'm kind of confused why he's sort of confused here. What is there to be confused about? But Erza looks at him, defeat Selene? And Natsu just smiles, everyone here is a friend. And Suzaku looks at him, friend? And Erza kind of questions, you mean summoned like with celestial magic? Who do you think called him? Is Wendy's line. And Gray, who at some point lost his pants too. Let me take a quick look, see if he had his shirt when he first showed up on this. No, he had his pants on earlier, but he's lost his pants at this point to Natsu. More importantly, you're naked with just your scarf. You look like a pervert. And Natsu looks at him, says the guy who's totally ass naked. Well, when that happen? And Wendy kind of turns around, yeah! And Suzaku kind of stifles a laugh at that. That's the moment that makes him break. Naked. And Lucy kind of like tired. And we just entered a weird situation. And Erza snaps at Gray. Put your clothes on, Gray. And Suzaku kind of like can't contain himself. Amusing. What amusing folks. And Gray's kind of mortified at this point. Is it really that funny? And Happy's just sort of silent for a minute before he turns to Gray. Naked. And he just says the word naked. And Suzaku kind of turns back to him and then turns away laughing again. Cat wearing only a cloth said naked. Okay. So this is... I'm curious how this is how... Because I imagine in a minute he's either going to see their fairy tale emblems and know enough about fairy tale to know what their emblem looks like, or they're going to say fairy tale, and that's going to completely change the dynamic. But for now, he's just sort of like literally like beating the ground, laughing, amusing, so amusing. And Happy just sort of sighs. Looks like he's got a weakness for naked shtick. And Carla, Wendy, keep far away from him. And then Suzaku turns back to them. Incidentally, all of thee, Black Moon Mountain is here, is it not? Natsu's just, I don't know. Wendy, if you're saying the name of this place, and then Suzaku kind of responds, I had come upon hearing Selene was here, and yet, and Gray responds, then you're not wrong. She's definitely here. Suzaku bows and says, I thank ye. Then, I shall go cut her down. And everyone's kind of shocked at how kind of direct he is about that, and Natsu counters, wait a sec, that's our job. Thou art amusing folk, but I cannot hand this over to thee. If I dally round, I mayst be overtaken by Fairy Tail. Not actually the route I thought this was going to go. And I'm not sure this is just a coincidence based on where Natsu and Gray's Fairy Tail marks are, but in that next panel, as Natsu, Gray, and Erza react, their guild marks are very clearly shown. And Natsu asks him, Fairy Tail? Indeed, foes of my guild I hast heard. A fire dragon slayer, a black-haired ice wizard, a red-haired swordswoman, a blonde celestial wizard, a small child dragon slayer, and 2 cats. So I guess Kiria, Scullion, and Madmole were actually pretty specific about what's going on about Fairy Tail. But Suzaku, after saying all that, looks at the 7 of them and finally puts the pieces together. And there's this, like, long pause as he stares at them. Surely ye are not Fairy Tail. How confusing. And Lucy, not quite realizing, I think, that he's denying that they're Fairy Tail, is, hold on, we're not exactly your... And then he says his guild's name, Diabolos. And everyone pauses as Erza flashes back to Kiria and Gray to Scullion. And Suzaku responds, that is my guild. Or Suzaku continues, that is my guild. Natsu responds, you're with those guys? Though ye may be delightful folk, ye art enemies who injured my guildmates. And he prepares to draw his sword. Remember back in 77, I think, when he killed the what was it called, the dirt monster, like without even appearing to have drawn it. But he goes to draw a sword. Prepare yourselves. And Erza, the swordswoman, is obviously the more attentive to these kinds of matters, and she reacts and deflects Suzaku's sword with her own. Or kind of, because it looks like Suzaku did his sort of a sword slash and has already sheathed it, and Erza's blocking the sword slash like a kind of One Piece sword trick. Like how One Piece swords can sometimes do like ranged attacks if the swordsman is strong enough, kind of like that. But Erza blocks it with her own sword, and her sword is cut in two. And Suzaku sort of glares at her, and it turns out that sword slash had cut past Erza's sword and cut her in the stomach. Gah! It was like a spurt of blood come up in the gash. Erza! And Wendy screams, Kya! Natsu glares at him. You! And Gray, are you serious? With just a single strike, Erza was... and Erza falls to her knees. Gah! And everyone runs after her. Erza, hang in there! Erza! And Suzaku sort of reacts to this. She was able to react to Mind Blade, and Natsu was running at him, Fire Fist up at the ready. That does it! But Gray calls out to him, Stop it, Natsu! He's on a whole different level. And without even seeing him even start to pull the sword, Natsu was like cut down, a gash across him. Unlike Erza, who only kind of like got like cut in a little part of her chest, this seems to have gone all across, like at a diagonal across Natsu's chest as he just bleeds out. Coughing up blood. He fails completely. And Lucy calls, Natsu! No! Natsu just let out an, gah! And then he hits the ground, and Gray sort of glares at Suzaku. He's real bad news. And Suzaku just kind of calmly responds, I did it to avenge my guild. And just then, someone approaches. What have we here? You don't mean to stand in my way, do you? And Lucy and Gray both react. And it's Selene, Mimi, and Hakone. Happy calls out, Selene! I couldn't help but overhear this troubling story about which of you would defeat me first. Dear me, to think that the 5 dragon gods would be reduced to someone's hunting trophies. Honestly, what a tasteless story. Selene kind of smiles deviously. I was thinking we're still, like, only nearing the halfway point of the Selene arc. But this might be setting up for the climax of the arc. I mean, still at least 10 chapters away. With Mimi and Hakone and Selene and Suzaku. That was, like, at least, bare minimum 10 chapters. But we might be kind of, like, 10 chapters away rather than, like, 20, like I thought we were. So yeah. With Selene, Mimi, and Hakone here, that's kind of our final battlefield, maybe. Honestly, what a tasteless story. And Suzaku sort of glares at her. So thou art Selene. And Lucy picks up Natsu, Gray picks up Erza, and the Team Natsu just runs. Natsu and Erza are in real bad shape. Let's retreat. Yeah! And Selene tells Hakone and Mimi, Hakone, Mimi, after them. Yes, ma'am. Got it. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background. It's that time of day again. Anyway, the team runs. Hakone and Mimi in quick retreat. Quick note, I thought her name was Hakone. Apparently it's Hakune. Whatever. Just wanted to clarify that. We see just how fast Mimi and Hakone run after them. And Selene, pretty much just to Suzaku, I shall take this swordsman. And Suzaku kind of stares her down. And we see this sort of like energy emanating from Suzaku. Pardon me, but our guild shall be the one to feast on this dragon. We shall take the heads of the 5 dragon gods. And we see just this energy around both Suzaku and Selene. And Suzaku glares at her. Have at you. And Selene taunts. Now come. The magical powers of the moon will kill you. To be continued. Okay. I love this chapter. I will say, as most people are probably aware, at this point in the Fairy Tail's run, Mashima does tend to be better at building up characters than actually, like, finishing them off, right? But even so, this build-up is just great. Like, I like the way that, like, Suzaku gets along with Fairy Tail for a good while. He thinks they're kind of funny. It's kind of weird, but funny nonetheless. And it's not until he realizes who they are that he's like, oh, y'all may be good people. You know, though ye may be delightful folk is his line. But, like, I'm a member of Diabolos first and foremost, and those are my friends. He doesn't quite say friends, but, like, this is Fairy Tail, and the way he acts is very similar to how a Fairy Tail member would react. If one of their friends when one of their friends would get injured. Knock it off, dog! Shush it! Sorry about that, but she's really going at it today. That did not work. Okay, let's wrap this up, because you don't have to listen to my dog barking too long. Anyway, what we see of Suzaku is great. I'm super on board with him. He breaks Erza's sword, cuts her down. She at least, like, has a fighting chance. Like, she's not as injured as, say, Natsu, who just gets the full brunt of the blast. Nothing to even defend with. We don't even get to see him prepare the attack in any way, shape, or form. Which means Team Natsu is 2 of its strongest members down, and with 2 of the beauty gods chasing after them, they're not exactly in a great spot right now. Like, I'm really excited to see how this goes. It's definitely going to have to involve Gray, Wendy, and Lucy kind of taking charge here. I'm definitely seeing Lucy having a major role in the fight with Mimi to sort of make up for her loss to Mimi. And I would expect a similar thing with Gray and Hakone, but then I'm not quite sure how Wendy's going to factor in here, so she's kind of the wild card. I do expect Gray versus Hakone and Lucy versus Mimi, and Wendy will end up in one of those 2 fights, I bet. But then it ends with just build up for Suzaku versus Selene, and I can't wait to see that. Like, that's not so much the kind of catharsis that could come from, you know, Lucy and Gray's fights. Them, you know, beating the enemy that previously beat them. But Suzaku and Selene are just kind of cool. It's pure wanting to see a cool fight for those 2. And sometimes there's just nothing wrong with wanting to see a super cool fight. So yeah, this was a really, really fun chapter, and I cannot wait to see what comes next. So I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, you know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!